What is going on, everybody? It is me again. It's HorrorFan34, and welcome to another video, and welcome to another review for the 31 Days of Horror Challenge in October. Now we are on day 11 of the challenge. I figured I'd go into more of a modern day horror film, kind of more of a recent one, the past 20 some years. And I figured this would be a good one to talk about because I can't believe I have never talked about this before during a horror marathon at all. But and I know my good buddy Rob, aka Movie Massacre, is a really big fan of this movie, and I wholeheartedly agree with him. And when I think of like best like horror films from like the from like 2000 to 2009. I always think about this one as being one of the top ones. And of course, that review is going to be on The Descent. Yep, The Descent. Always love that cover on there as well. This came out in 2005. This is directed by Neil Marshall, who did Dog Soldiers, which is a very solid movie. And The Descent just has a lot of really good stuff going for it when it comes to like modern day horror films like in the 2000s. Now, the basic idea with this film is that it's about these six women. They're traveling. They're on an adventure in the Appalachian Mountains, and they decide to investigate or go into this cave that no one even has ever heard of. It's kind of like a hidden cave, and basically what ends up happening is that they're far below in the cave. They're deep down into the cave. It's dark down there. A rock slide ends up hitting, and it causes their exit to be completely blocked off, so they have no way of getting out of the cave. And then basically you find out that there's these creatures in the cave. And from what I remember, I think I always forget this point, but I think they the creatures detect by sound, I believe, because if they hear you nearby, they'll know where you are. I believe it's by sound that they can detect where people are at. So basically, it's these six women being trapped in this cave. Almost said cage for some reason, but cave. Trapped in there with these creatures, and they gotta find a way to survive. And if they survive or not, that's pretty much the entire premise of the movie. Now, what I really like about The Descent, first off, I really like the cast in this, even though it's not really a lot of well-known faces, like Alex Reed, Shauna McDonald, Natalie Mendoza, Nora Jane Noon, Mayana Buring, but these women are fantastic in the film. I like the banter they have back and forth between each other. They're tough characters. They're strong characters, especially the main female, who is this girl here on the cover. The main female, I thought she was a very strong lead female character. I would say one of the more underrated female horror characters, I would say, because I think she did a terrific job. And what I also really like about this, too, is the idea of the film, like the premise. I like that it takes place inside of a cave, deep down into the cave, and what I really like about what Neil Marshall did with this concept, with his direction, Neil Marshall did a really good job of making this really feel very claustrophobic, and you definitely feel like, you're trapped in there with these women, and you're kind of there, and you can kind of feel it around you. And Neil Marshall, if you're a very claustrophobic person and you don't like tight spaces, this is definitely going to be a very tough sit for you, because most of the film does take place all in this cave that they can't escape out of. And Neil Marshall just did a great job bringing this whole claustrophobic vibe to it, and it is gory as hell. I mean, this is the unrated cut. It's very gory, but very well done gore effects. I don't remember who did the gore. I don't remember who did the... Oh, no, here it is right here. Yeah, Tanya Lodge, who did the makeup effects. Very well done effects, like on the creatures and on the gore. You could definitely tell it's practical, and it's very well done. And I know around this time, too, there was a lot of rip-offs of this film that were nowhere near as good. I know they did one called The Cave, which was just okay. It's PG-13, but I've seen worse, but it's not the greatest, not that great. And then a very shitty one called The Cavern, which is pretty much a low-budgeted, cheap version of this movie, pretty much, with not that great of at least with a weaker cast and things like that. I mean, just when I watched The Cavern, it just reminded me of this film, but much more cheaper and much more, just lame. This one is definitely far better. You got a better director, you have far better cast of characters. You have the practical gore. You have the great claustrophobic vibe to it. Because like The Cave and The Cavern, you don't really get that vibe. But Neil Marshall definitely does bring that vibe of claustrophobia to the film. And that's what makes it I think my personal favorite sort of like horror film that takes place inside of a cave, pretty much. I love this movie a lot, and I can definitely see why Rob is a big fan of it. The whole ending is really bizarre. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it's kind of threw me in for a loop. I will say that for sure. With the main girl, I'm not going to spoil it, but if you've seen the film, you definitely know what I'm talking about. I was not a fan of the sequel they made to this, The Descent Part 2, because it kind of made the first one kind of pointless and kind of ruins the first movie in a way, so don't bother with the sequel, The Descent 2. But this is definitely the best one. Like I said, fantastic cast of female characters in this. Very good direction by Neil Marshall. Love the setting. It's got a pretty solid musical score as well. Pretty solid. David Julian, who's the composer, the very solid score. Very gory, very graphic. It's R-rated, doesn't hold back. Great makeup effects on the creatures and on the gore by Tanya Lodge. Like I said, I really liked the main actress. I thought she did a good job as the main female. She was tough. She was really tough as nails. And I really like the whole idea, too, with the creatures, like, they can hunt by sound. I always thought that was such a creepy concept and idea. But if you really want a really solid horror film that takes place inside of a cave, and you want a really good, like, claustrophobic vibe, sort of like in the vein of, like, being trapped in one spot, I think this is definitely the best one that deals with that concept. But you can also say, like, Cujo in the car and that kind of thing, but I think this is definitely my favorite of that kind. So that's pretty much it for my review for The Descent. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.